Merry Christmas. I'm Jack Taylor. This is Imagine Christmas, and this is part 25, our final session together. I hope you've enjoyed the journey. Today we're imagining what Christmas is all about Jesus. From the beginning, it has all been about Jesus. He's the one gift that we've been waiting for. He's the hidden figure throughout the whole story. He's the one who met with Abraham to promise that a miracle child would be born to him. He's the one who intervened on the mountaintop to stop Abraham from killing Isaac, and he promised that he would provide himself as the lamb. He's the one who stood at the top of the heavenly ladder watching over Jacob while angels went up and down between heaven and earth. Then he met with Jacob on his return and wrestled with him. He changed Jacob's name to Israel. He's been orchestrating the whole story. He spoke through Balaam, through Cyrus, through anyone and everyone who would listen. Jesus is the one who met with Moses in the burning bush and introduced himself as the I am. Later he would tell us that he says, I am the bread, I am the light, I am the gate, I am the good shepherd, I am the vine, I am the living one, I am the resurrection and the life, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He's the one who overpowered Pharaoh and freed his people while using the blood of the Lamb to mark who was his. He opened the Red Sea. He fed his people in the wilderness. He met with Moses on the mountain while the law was given. He led his people through a pillar of cloud and fire. He's the one who took Joshua through the Jordan, telling him how to capture the land. He was known as the angel of the Lord in that time. He raised up judges and rescuers and finally chose David to establish a throne that would last. David filled his psalms with the truth about the one who would be our rock and our redeemer, our refuge and our strength. Not too many can choose their own genealogy in advance, but Jesus did. He took his promises to David and Solomon seriously, and he preserved a remnant of the family line. And when the people decided to go their own way and they reaped the consequences of their choices by being sent into exile, he led them back. He had filled the mouths of prophets with his precise promises, pointing the way to how and where and when the Christmas story would all take place. And Isaiah saw him high and lifted up in the temple. Then he told us about the virgin who would conceive, and he told us about the wonderful counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace who would come. He also told us that Jesus would be the suffering servant who would come and die for our sins and then rise again. Daniel quoted Jesus just like Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Micah, and Malachi did. And then Jesus stepped into the shadows, molding the finishing touches on his birth story. The angels were cued, the details on earth were polished up, and no one had a clue what he was really up to. The Word who had always been with God, the Word who was God, the Word who brought everything into being that came into being, this Word emptied himself into the seed of a woman and huddled up for 9 months of waiting. Omnipotence, omnipresence, omniscience in a helpless, finite, silent baby dependent on a teen mom and an inexperienced dad in the middle of a hostile land. What child is this whose very sustenance and protection depends on the weakest of his own creations? This Joshua, this Yeshua, this Jesus who will save his people from their sins, this Lord who will unleash the love, the grace, the hope, the peace, the joy of heaven onto the undeserving below. This one celebrated by lowly shepherds and exalted magi. This champion of heaven who will tear down the barriers that separate us from life and truth. And not only us, but men and women and children from all nations for all time. Imagine Christmas. He's come, and he's always been more amazing than we dreamed. And now he wants to weave you into his story. How about it? What holds you back, if anything? He's already been part of your unspoken story. Now, perhaps, He needs to be part of the story that you share out loud. Perhaps you're feeling alone, forgotten, betrayed. He knows, he understands, he cares. Even if you walk through dark valleys of shadows, you don't have to be afraid. He's with you. Perhaps you feel misunderstood or slandered or pressured by demands that overwhelm you. He's with you. And one day he's coming again. How would things change for you if you started imagining that day right now, right where you are? I want to thank you for being on this journey. Perhaps in a while we can sit down and imagine Easter together. But in the meantime, would you consider the gift and receive it for yourself? Imagine Christmas. He's here.